Hello and welcome to a demo of the Actuaries Longevity Illustrator. They've had a refresh. Most of it's the same. It looks nice, new, and modern. Let's begin. Just click on this. And I'm just going to agree and continue. I'm going to do two people, but so that you can do a comparison of what changes when you do two people in this Longevity Illustrator. I'm going to start with one person, and I'm going to just do me to make it easy. So Meep, and I'm 50 and female, and I'm just going to keep it at retirement age of 65. Okay, I don't smoke, and just to keep it simple, average. Okay, so 50-year-old female, non-smoker, average health, and going to retire at age 65. A little early, but it's okay. And the concept here is, what length of time do I need to plan for? If I'm starting at age 65 for retirement, what length of retirement do I need to plan for? So they start at 65, assuming that I survive to age 65. Then I have, about a 50% chance, using their set of assumptions. I'm not going to discuss their assumptions in this video. That's for a future video. Of living to about age 90. 25% to about age 95, and 8% to about age 100. I'm like, okay. So it seems to me that I need to plan of living at least 25 years in retirement. So that would get me to age 90 from age 65. That's a 50% chance. For safety's sake, I probably should, plan on 30 years retirement. That covers 75% of the probability. Okay. So only 25% of the time would I live past 95. Actually, if I do 35 years, it's less than 10% chance that I will go beyond that. Well, that's one person. What if I add a second person? So this is part of their new functionality. You don't have to keep going back and forth and that kind of thing. I can add a second person. And because I want you to see the impact of having a second person specifically, I'm going to add a second person I'm calling Meep2, who has the exact same stats as me. This has nothing to do with same-sex marriage or anything like that. It's just I want you to see someone who has the exact same stats. Age 50, same retirement age 65, average, etc. And it's based on the retirement age of person 1, by the way, when you do two people. The concept with two people is, how long do you have to plan to the death of whoever dies last? Okay, so they have the two people together, and obviously they're going to have the same curve because they start out the same age. They start out at age 65, and we care about the planning horizon. It gets a little complicated, so this graph, let me unpack it for you. How many years do we need to plan for two people? Obviously, given that they have the exact same stats, the green and the red, are going to match for each number of years. So the 50% probability is about 25 years, as I said before, 25% probability 30 years, 10%, it's almost at 35. But if I'm looking at either one surviving a certain period, look at where the median goes to. It goes from about 25 to almost 30 years. If it's 25 percentile, there's not as big a gap. It goes from about 30 years to, about 32 years. Okay, so that's 32 years. This is 29 years, this is 32 years if it's 10%. So the disparity shrinks a little bit when we go to higher percentiles. And the concept is this: if you have a couple and you're trying to figure out savings as a couple to last both of the couple's lives in retirement, to be sure, when one dies, the expenses may drop. However, it can get a little dicey in old age. I'm not getting into how costs change in, say, young seniorhood versus old seniorhood and long-term care insurance and other needs as you get into much older age. That was it as a graph. As a table, we have the same thing here. So the probability that at least one of MEEP 1 and MEEP 2 survives 90%. So it's 11 years for the, from age 65. So that's to 76. But it's 20 years for the couple that at least one of them will survive. 90% chance. But if we're looking at median, so there's a 5-year difference between if you just look at each of them as an individual versus as a couple, the one who is going to survive the longest. Again, I'm doing this in isolation, just trying to show you the decision making for a couple together and longevity. You can't do it as look at this individual and look at the other individual separately. When you combine it, the way the probability interacts can be a little different. Though the disparity, and you can see that gap, so at the 10% probability, out in the tail, that gap is now 2 years versus the 9-year gap at the 90th percentile, the survival. I'm going to do a second version of a couple, this time female and male. This is not Stu's age. He's a lot older than that. And remember, when you change any of the values over here, you do need to click on Update Results. So a male, 5 years older than the person on the left. And again, notice that they have to link the two ages together. Again, I'll just non-smoker average. And we have different probabilities of survival now. This is interesting because the difference here is MEEP hits age 65 at the same age Stu hits age 70. So these two survival curves that you see in this graph here, you have to remember that these are not going to be in sync, as it were. So MEEP starts out 100% survival at age 65 because the whole point is planning for retirement. So they assume you make it to retirement. Otherwise, there's no, if you die before retirement, nothing to worry about, right? Similarly, Stu is assumed to survive to age 70. So in real life, you do have to assume perhaps one of the two might not make it to that age and plan accordingly. That said, these are the survival curves that they're working with for what comes below on the page, so that you understand that this does have repercussions if you're assuming both are alive at the beginning of the planning period. That one of the two might not be alive, that may die in the next 15 years. It may happen. I'm editing out all of the words in between. You can read those for yourself. I'm not going to read those out loud. I'm just trying to do the interpretation of the numbers you see here, and you'll notice that because the male is 5 years older than the female, that males do have lower survivorship than females for the same age, and all else being equal. And that's going to be part of the assumption set that has repercussions. So when we look at how many years from that initial retirement age, so 65 for me, 70 for Stu, they're starting out the same time, and we're assuming they're both alive at the start of the simulation, that Meep has a 90% chance of surviving 11 years and Stu 5. Okay, again, he's starting out 5 years older in this simulation. That either one survives, 90% chance, 17 years. So you can see how these, it's not add the two together, it's, it doesn't work that way. That you need both of them to survive, that's 4 years. And of course, there's rounding, they're just giving you a nearest whole number, that kind of thing. Let's really look at 50%, the median, and it's close to what you'd be calling the life expectancy, which it's not, but let's just pretend. So the median, again, for me, it's about 24 years. For Stu is going to be 17 years. Again, it's not 5 years difference because males from the same age are going to have different, and you're starting Stu from 5 years older anyway. Okay, so 24 and 17, that we want either one of them to be alive. The median is 26 years. So that would be like the average you should be planning for. That you want both of them to be alive would be 15 years. And so that's going to be lower than the one who's going to be shorter lived. That's how it works out. And you can kind of see how it keeps going when there is a disparity like this. So, for example, in real life, Stuart, my husband, is older and in poorer health than I am. All of the retirement planning is going around my age and my health, not incorporating anything with Stuart because there's too large of a gap. When you're close in age is when it really starts, and health, etc., is when the planning for retirement length, you have to combine the two people. When there's a large gap, it really is the longer lived person, who in this case is Meep, is going to dominate the planning horizon. And that's just how mathematically it's going to work out. It does make it difficult. Ways to simplify it, of course, are using products like life annuities that will guarantee income for life. Social Security is supposed to work that way, but the maximum amount that you can get from Social Security is fairly modest, and the average amount people get is definitely modest. And there's not been a lot of reform talk, and the Social Security trust fund is going to run out. So perhaps don't include that in your planning. In any case, this is a good tool to play around with. Put your own stats in, and if you're married, think about putting these in and think about the time horizon you need to be planning for. It can have different effects. I didn't even mess around with the health level. If you have good health or excellent health, you may need to be planning for a longer time horizon in retirement. Adjusting your retirement age upward is actually one of the things that you do have a lot more control over, that may help you more in having a more secure retirement, more years of saving for retirement, and a shorter horizon that you need to cover. So these are things that this tool is supposed to help you with in terms of illustration of the different kinds of uncertainties that may be in your retirement planning, what kind of horizon. A lot of people don't realize that the retirement that you're planning for might be a lot longer than you think. People may be thinking that their retirement horizon 20 years. Nah, people are living a lot longer than you think. You know, don't take your cues from the pandemic. So use this tool. It's free. You know, drop questions on the video here on YouTube. If this is on my Substack post, go over to YouTube and ask the questions. That's just fine. You know, so this has been me, or Mary Pat Campbell, your friendly life actuary, and I hope to be doing more of these videos. Bye.